we've got 6.5 continued. We are still solving equations today. Everything today is an equation. You're finding an answer. Oh, no, there's square roots. No, yeah, I told you it's still the same section. We're just actually making a little bit more work. All right, so there's a couple things that are going to happen today. The first thing that could happen today is that, let's see, 2 cancel. A square root, we square both sides, right? All of the ones we did yesterday only had a single number on that other side to square. Today, it's going to be a binomial you have to square. So when you square it, a binomial, we multiply it in the box. All right, so let me show you what I mean. Okay? So let's say I have, how about the square root of, I don't know, x plus 3 equals x minus 2. Okay? No. We have the square root by itself. Remember, that was our first goal yesterday, was to get the square root by itself. We have that by itself. So that means in order to get rid of that square root, we're going to square both sides. On this side, the square root and the square, they cancel. Right? Same thing we did yesterday, x plus 3. However, on this side, this really means we have x minus 2 times x minus 2. So to figure out what that is, we have to put it in the box. X minus 2 times x minus 2. X times x is x squared. X times negative 2 is negative 2x. X times negative 2 is negative 2x. Negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. So on that right-hand side, we would have x squared. Adding our diagonals together, minus 4x plus 4. Okay? Then when we're solving an equation that's got a square root in it, we get the whole thing set equal to what? Yes. So now, set equal to 0. So we're going to subtract 3 over, and we're going to subtract x over. So we get 0 equals x squared minus 5x plus 1. Okay? And at this point, we would solve. Okay? Now, we're not going to solve it right now because the one I made up doesn't factor, and all the ones today will. Okay? So I just want you to realize that. But here's the second awesome part of today. Once you solve it, because you got an x squared, how many answers are you going to get? You're going to get 2 answers, right? So, after you get 2 answers, check for extraneous, that's a T, extraneous solutions. What an extraneous solution is that when you solve your equation, you get this number that works. But when you plug it back into the original, it doesn't. Okay? So we have to check. We're going to get some answers today that do not work in the original. All right? Okay. So this is the first section. So let's work with this first. So here we go. Example number 1. Example 1. This is what you are doing for 26 through 34. Oops, 34. There we go. It's going to say solve and check for extraneous solutions. All right, here is our first example. Let's say I have the square root of 5 minus x equals, excuse me, hello? Uh-huh. Okay, I'll tell him. Thank you, bye. Zach, you have to leave. Yep. Alright, so we have in this case 5 minus x equals x plus 1. Alright, so you can see we have the square root by itself, right? So first thing we're going to do is square both sides. Square this side, and we're going to square this side. Hope everything's okay. Here, the square root and the square root, they cancel. We get 5 minus x equals, on this side, we have to put this in the box, x plus 1 times x plus 1. X times x is x squared. X times 1 is 1x. X times 1 is 1x. 1 times 1 is 1. So on this side, we have x squared. Adding our diagonals together, plus 2x plus 1. Now we get it set equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract 5 to the other side, and I'm going to add x. Very good. So we have 0 equals x squared. Fix that. Oops, come on. Good. Good. Plus 3x minus 4. All right, so now let's factor this, because we're looking for solutions, right? 2 of them, because it's an x squared. Negative 4 on top, 3 on the bottom. My sides are 4 and negative 1. So I have x plus 4 times x minus 1 equals 0. So now, any factor you have with an x in it, we set equal to 0. So x plus 4 equals 0. X minus 1 equals 0. So the first solution we get is x equals negative 4. And the second solution we get is x equals 1. Now we have to check for extraneous solutions. So remember our original problem we had up here was the square root of 5 minus x equals x plus 1, right? So we're going to test, let me move this up just a little bit, not quite that much, but just a little bit. We're going to test our solutions in that original equation. Negative 4 goes in here. So I have the square root of 5 minus a negative 4 equals negative 4 plus 1. 5 minus a negative 4 is 9. The square root of 9 is 3. On the right-hand side, we have negative 4 plus 1, which is negative 3. Do those equal each other? No. So that is an extraneous solution. We cross it out. Now we got to test x equals 1. So I have the square root of 5 minus 1 equals 1 plus 1. 5 minus 1 is 4. The square root of 4 is 2 equals 2. Does that work? So we circle this answer because that's the one that works. Okay? Questions? I want to do one more from this section before we keep going. Is there any question? It really is putting together everything we know how to do, right? Okay. Alright, so here's example number 2. Let's say I have the square root of 3x plus 15 minus 5 equals x. Alright, what do I have to do first this time? Perfect. Add the 5 over. We've got to get the square root by itself. So we have the square root of 3x plus 15 equals x plus 5. Now we square both sides. On this side, the square root and the square root cancel. So we have 3x plus 15. On this side, we have to multiply that out in the box. So I'm going to put a little box here. X plus 5 times x plus 5. X times x is x squared. 5 times x, 5 times x, 5 times 5. So we get x squared plus 10x plus 25. Set it all equal to 0, so I have to subtract my 3x over, and I have to subtract my 15 over. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. So we have 0 equals x squared. 10x minus 3x, positive 7x. And how about 25 and negative 15? Plus 10. So we're going to factor this. 10 on top, 7 on the bottom. What do I have? 5 and 2. I agree. So I have x plus 5 times x plus 2. Alright, so that means I get x equals negative 5, and I get x equals negative 2. We've got to test them now. Alright, so I'm going to go up here and put negative 5 in. 3 times negative 5 is negative 15. Plus 15 is 0. Then I get negative 5 equals negative 5. Well, that's true. That one works. Right? Let's plug negative 2 in. If I put negative 2 in here, I get the square root of negative 6 plus 15, which is 9, or 3 minus 5. Does that equal negative 2? It does. So this one also works in this case. So this one has 2 solutions. Alright, how we doing? We're okay? It's going to take a little bit of practice, right? Alright, so now I want to talk about the next section. So there are some other things that could happen today when you're doing your math. We could end up to what we call a one-to-one function. A one-to-one function means that both sides are in the same radical or fractional exponent. If that's true, if both sides are underneath the square root or both sides have the same fractional exponent, you can set the insides equal to each other. Okay, so what I mean is, if I have, for example, 3x plus 1 raised to the 1/3 power equals x minus 5 to the 1/3 power. See how both sides have the exact same on it, right? So that means it's a one-to-one function. We can take what's inside here has to be equal to what's inside here. So we can set them equal to each other. So we can just say we have 3x plus 1 equals x minus 5. And then we solve for x. So we subtract x from both sides. So we have 2x plus 1 equals negative 5. Subtract 1 from both sides. We get 2x equals negative 6. Divide by 2. And we get x equals negative 3. So when you get those one-to-one functions, you just set the insides equal to each other. Okay? So let's look at one of those. All right, so here's example number 3. All right, for example number 3, let's say I have the square root of 3x plus 2 minus the square root of 2x plus 7 equals 0. So in this one, we have to get a radical by itself. So we're actually going to add this radical on this side to the right. Okay? So we're going to add the square root of 2x plus 7 to the right-hand side. We end up with the square root of 3x plus 2 equals the square root of 2x plus 7. So now they're both underneath the same square root, right? So that means we can take their insides and set them equal to each other. So we can take this 3x plus 2 and set it equal to, maybe, 2x plus 7. And solve our equation. So we subtract 2x to this side. So we get x plus 2 equals 7. Yep, and then subtract your 2. Awesome. X equals 5. Now we really should check to make sure it works, right? So if I take my 5 and plug it in here, 3 times 5 is 15. Let's try that again. 3 times 5 is 15 plus 2 is 17. So I have the square root of 17. If I put into this one, 2 times 5 is 10 plus 7 is 17. So I have the square root of 17 minus the square root of 17. Does that give me 0? So this works. Okay? Alright. So one-to-one functions actually make our life easier, don't they? Alright. I would like to do another example. You guys good with the whole one-to-one function? Alright, then I have to talk about the one monster that we have for a problem. I'm going to talk about one similar to number 42, that's the monster. Okay? Similar. Here's example number 4. And I call it a monster because, well, you'll see in a second. Alright. No, I'm not trying to scare you. I just want you to realize it's going to take a little bit of work. And some of us in this class don't like a lot of work. So we tend to avoid it. Right? I mean, I know you guys. I know. Yeah, I know. Alright, so let's say I have the square root of 5 minus x minus the square root of x equals 1. Alright, so the first thing I have to do is get that square root by itself. So I'm going to add the square root of x over, right? So we're going to add this over. That's easy. We know we have to do that. So we have the square root of 5 minus x equals 1 plus the square root of x. Is this a one-to-one function? No, because it's not all underneath, right? Okay, so what we have to do is, to get rid of the first square root, we got to square both sides, which we know we have to do, right? On this side, we get 5 minus x. On this side, we have to put this in the box. So I'm going to put it in the box. I have 1 plus the square root of x times 1 plus the square root of x. 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times the square root of x is square root of x. 1 times the square root of x is square root of x. Square root of x times square root of x is x. So on this side, we get 1 plus, adding our diagonal together, we have 2 square roots of x plus x equals our 5 minus x. Still good? Alright. Now remember, our whole rule is we got to get rid of our square roots. So now I got to get that square root by itself. So I'm going to have to subtract my x over and subtract my 1 over. So subtract x and subtract 1. I get 4 minus 2x equals 2 square root x. Is the square root by itself yet? Now we got to divide by 2. Exactly. Divide both sides by 2. On this side, we get 2 minus x. On this side, we get...
Can I have your attention, please, for an announcement? Just a reminder that there's a sign-up sheet for varsity baseball in Mr. Walker's room. If you could please remember to sign up as soon as possible for any of the boys interested in playing varsity baseball in Mr. Walker's room. Thank you.
All right, so you guys are good how we got to here, right? So now what do you think we have to do? We got to square it again, because we got to get rid of this square root. So we're going to square it one more time. Square this side and square this side. This side cancels the square root, right, Dylan? All right, on this side, I have to put that in the box. 2 minus x times 2 minus x. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times negative x is negative 2x. 2 times negative x is negative 2x. Negative x times negative x is positive x So on this side I have x squared minus 4x plus 4. Okay, tell me what I got to do now. Subtract x. We got to get it set equal to 0. So subtract x from both sides. So I have x squared minus 5x plus 4 equals 0. I can factor this. Negative or positive 4 on top, negative 5 on the bottom. Our sides are negative 4 and negative 1. So we get x minus 4 times x minus 1. Yeah. And of course, you're going to tell me, Jazz, what are we going to have to do with our two answers? Yeah, we've got to go back and test them. Okay? So, we're going to go all the way back to the very, very original problem and see which answer works. Or maybe they both do. So we'll start with 4. All the way back to the beginning of this problem. Woo, way up here. So we're going to plug 4 in. 5 minus 4 is 1. The square root of 1 is 1, right? Square root of 4 is 2. So 1 minus 2 is negative 1. Does that first one work? Good. Now we're going to test the other one. Plugging in 1. 5 minus 1 is 4. The square root of 4, 2. Minus the square root of 1, which is 1. 2 minus 1 is 1. Does that one work? Yes. Okay? So you're going to cross this one out because that's extraneous, and you're going to circle that one. Now, I only gave you one of these monsters for your homework. Okay? All right? Any questions? All right. So you guys still have about 10 minutes if you want to get started. In case you have any questions while you're working.